The great hall of the alien arena was filled with light and noise. Thousands of voices echoed, voices of different species from across the galaxy. Some had sharp scales, some had shining wings, some had glowing eyes. All of them had come for one reason: to see the contest, and in the center of the hall a figure stood, silent and still. She was the prize of the bet. The girl looked fragile yet strong, her eyes full of quiet fire. Her silver skin glowed under the strange lights, and her hair moved as if it were alive. The aliens whispered about her, saying she was beautiful, rare, and valuable. But to them, she was not a person, she was only a prize. Her future was tied to a cruel game, a game that was nothing more than entertainment for the galaxy. The rules of the bet were simple. The strongest would take her. The aliens laughed as they talked about it. They had seen warriors fight, bleed, and die for less. But this time the reward was different. It was not gold, not weapons, not planets. It was a living being, a young woman whose eyes showed fear and pride at the same time. Then the crowd grew louder, because the challengers had arrived. A massive alien champion, taller than two men, covered in armor-like skin, stepped forward. He roared, and the walls shook with the sound. He was known across many worlds, feared for his strength. He was the one most expected to win. And then something strange happened. A small figure walked into the arena. The crowd went silent for a moment, then laughed. It was a human. Humans were not known for power. They were seen as soft, fragile, weak compared to other races. They did not have claws. They did not have fangs. They did not have glowing skin. But here he was, a human man walking calmly into the circle. His steps were steady, his eyes focused. He did not roar. He did not show fear. He only looked at the girl, then at the champion. The alien champion laughed loudly, his voice shaking the air. "You cannot be serious," he mocked. "A human dares to join this bet." The crowd roared with laughter. Some shouted insults. Others placed quick bets on how fast he would die. The girl looked at the human with wide eyes. She did not understand why he was here. Why would a human risk his life for her? What could he gain from this? The announcer, a strange being with 3 mouths, raised his hands and declared the rules. The contest will test strength, skill, and survival. The one who remains standing at the end will take the prize. Let the game begin. But before the challenge could start, a voice whispered among the crowd. "Why is he here?" One alien hissed. "He cannot win. He is only human," another said. "Maybe he wants glory, maybe he wants death," another muttered. The whispers grew. The tension rose. Everyone wanted to see the human fail. Everyone wanted to see him broken. But the human stood calmly. He did not bow. He did not tremble. He looked at the champion with steady eyes. The girl saw something strange in his face. It was not fear. It was not pride. It was something else. Something the aliens could not name. It was resolve. The alien champion roared again and smashed his fist into the ground. The stone cracked under his power. The crowd cheered. The sound of claws and wings beating together filled the air. The human only stepped aside, avoiding the shock of stone. He did not fight yet. He was waiting. The girl's heart raced. She had seen many warriors come and go. None of them had looked like this human. He was not the strongest. He was not the loudest. But he looked as if he belonged. And that made her wonder, could he really win? The aliens laughed again. Some shouted, "Crush him, end it fast." Others shouted, "Make it slow. Let us enjoy the human's pain." But the human did not listen. His mind was clear, his eyes sharp. He had not come to be entertainment. He had come to change something. And in that moment, no one knew, not even the girl, that this contest would become a story told across stars. The announcer raised his voice. "Let the first strike begin." The champion roared and rushed forward. The ground shook under his steps. The human tightened his fists. The girl held her breath, and the galaxy watched. The bet had started, the prize waited, and the human was ready. The alien champion's roar filled the air as he charged. His massive legs shook the stone floor, every step like thunder. The crowd screamed with excitement, believing the fight would be over in moments. The girl closed her eyes, expecting the human to fall. But when she opened them, the human was still standing. He had moved just enough to escape the crushing strike. The alien's fist smashed the ground, splitting stone into dust. Yet the human stood untouched, calm as a shadow. Whispers rose in the crowd. "That was luck," one alien said. "He cannot dodge again," another shouted. But some were silent now, watching carefully. The human's movements were too smooth, too deliberate. It did not feel like luck, it felt like something else. The alien champion snarled, his pride wounded. He had expected screams, blood, and a quick victory. Instead, the human stared at him with steady eyes. It was not arrogance, it was not fear. It was quiet defiance. The announcer's three mouths laughed, echoing in the hall. "Remember the rules, strength is not enough, survival decides the winner." The champion growled and raised his claws. "Then let him try to survive," he shouted. The crowd cheered, eager to see destruction. The girl watched, her hands clenched tightly together. She had been told her fate was already sealed. She was to be given to whoever won, like a trophy, like property. But this human did not look at her as if she was an object. When their eyes met, she felt seen, not owned. And that small detail made her heart beat faster. The champion lunged, again faster this time. He swung his claws wide, the sound sharp in the air. The human ducked low, rolled to the side, and used the broken stones as cover. The crowd gasped. The alien was strong, yes, but the human was clever. Every move was not random. It was planned. Every step was measured. He was studying his enemy, and the girl noticed it. The alien laughed bitterly. "You think you can run forever," he mocked. "You will tire, little human. Your body will break." But the human only tilted his head. He said nothing. His silence was heavier than any insult. It unsettled the champion, because silence meant confidence, and confidence was dangerous. The fight continued. The alien attacked with brute force, breaking walls, throwing stones, roaring with rage. The human moved lightly, dodging, sliding, waiting. It was like watching a storm chase a shadow. The storm was loud, violent, furious. The shadow was quiet, unbroken, always out of reach. The girl's eyes widened as she realized something. The human was not just fighting for victory. He was fighting for her. Not for ownership, but for freedom. She could feel it in the way he looked at her, the way he risked his life without hesitation. The alien saw her as a prize, but to him, she was something else, something worth saving. The crowd grew restless. Some shouted angrily, "End it already, crush the human." Others whispered with unease, "This is strange. Why is he still alive? He should be dead." And in their voices, doubt began to grow. Doubt in the champion, doubt in the old belief that humans were weak. The champion, red with fury, slammed both fists into the ground. The arena shook. Stones burst upward, dust filled the air. The human disappeared in the smoke. The girl leaned forward, her heart racing. Was he crushed? Was he gone? The dust cleared slowly, and there he was, standing tall on a fallen stone, untouched, his breathing steady. The crowd gasped in disbelief. The announcer tried to stir the mood again. "Strength shows power, but survival shows will. This contest is not finished. The human still stands." The champion roared louder than before. "This is no contest, this is mockery," he shouted. But the human's quiet presence made those words sound hollow. The girl could not look away. Every part of her wanted to believe, every part of her feared to believe. Could he really win? Could a human defeat a champion? Her life depended on the answer. The human bent slightly, picking up a small stone. It was nothing compared to the weapons of aliens. But in his hand, it became a sign that he would not fight with brute strength. He would fight with mind. The stone dropped back to the ground, a quiet choice. The crowd laughed again, but the girl did not. She understood what he meant. He would not play their game, he would make his own. The champion charged once more, blind with rage. But the human had already moved. The fight was no longer strength against strength. It was strength against patience, power against intelligence, and somewhere deep in the crowd, a whisper began to spread. What if the human wins? The girl's breath caught in her throat. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. The bet was no longer just a cruel game. It had become a question that could shake the galaxy. And the answer was hidden inside this quiet, determined human who refused to fall. The arena trembled as the challenge truly began. The alien champion stood tall, his chest heaving with anger, his eyes glowing with fury. The human, smaller, quieter, moved like a shadow across the broken floor. Every step was careful, every motion calm. To the crowd it looked uneven, unfair, a beast of power against a fragile man. But something in the air had changed. It was no longer simple, no longer one-sided. The champion slammed his claws together, sparks flying into the air. "This ends now," he roared. The sound echoed through the stone walls, shaking the bones of everyone present. Many in the crowd cheered, sure that the human could not last another moment. But the girl leaned forward, her breath caught in her throat. She had seen warriors before, many broken under the weight of this champion's fury. Yet this human was different. He did not meet rage with rage. He met it with silence. The champion attacked again. His massive arms swung like hammers, crushing stone wherever they landed. The ground split, dust rose, pieces of the arena flew into the air, but the human kept moving, his feet light, his eyes sharp. He was not fighting the champion's body, he was fighting his mind. Every swing, every strike, every roar was being measured, studied, remembered. The human was learning the crowd did not understand. They wanted blood, they wanted screams. But what they saw was a dance. The alien was wild, powerful, endless in his rage. The human was calm, focused, precise. The more the champion attacked, the more the human understood him, and the more the girl's hope grew. At last the champion caught the human off guard. A sudden swipe, faster than before, cut across his arm. Blood ran down his skin, red and bright. The crowd roared with joy. "Yes, yes, crush him," they shouted. The champion smiled, showing his sharp teeth, but the human did not scream. He only tightened his jaw and stepped back. His wound was real, his pain clear, yet his eyes burned stronger than before. The girl's heart twisted. She could not bear to see him hurt, but in that moment she realized something. He was not afraid of pain. Pain was part of his strength. He was willing to bleed if it meant victory. The champion struck again, trying to press his advantage, but the human moved differently now. He no longer only dodged, he countered. Small movements, clever tricks. He pushed broken stones into the champion's path. He used the dust to hide his steps. Every detail of the arena became his weapon. The crowd began to murmur. "This is strange," they whispered. "He is turning the arena itself into an ally." The champion grew angrier. His strikes became heavier. Louder but less precise, he roared. But his roars no longer shook the human. The human had found the rhythm of the fight, and once a rhythm was found, it could be broken. The girl watched with wide eyes. Every time the human moved, her chest filled with both fear and hope. He was fighting not just for himself, he was fighting for her. She knew it now, and she felt something she had not felt in years. Faith. The alien champion slammed his tail into the ground, trying to corner the human. Stone cracked and blocked the path. But instead of panicking, the human leapt onto the broken wall. The crowd gasped as he climbed higher. The champion looked up in rage. "You cannot hide from me," he shouted. But the human was not hiding. He was planning from above. He could see everything. The broken floor, the cracks, the weak points, the arena was alive with danger. And the human saw how to use it. He leapt down again, landing lightly, his eyes locked on the champion. The fight was not over. It was only beginning. The champion charged again, his body like a storm. But storms burn themselves out. The human sidestepped, guided the alien into a broken wall. The impact shook the hall. Stones rained down. The crowd gasped in disbelief. The champion stumbled for the first time, and in that stumble, the truth became clear. The human could win. The girl covered her mouth with her hand. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear but from wonder. She had never thought anyone could stand against the champion. Yet here was this human, small and fragile, turning weakness into strength, turning survival into victory. The champion roared again, louder, angrier. His pride was wounded, his body heavy, but the human only straightened. He wiped the blood from his arm, and with calm voice, he spoke for the first time. "I am not here to win a prize," he said. "I am here to prove humanity." The hall fell silent. Even the announcers' mouths did not speak. The words echoed like fire through the crowd. For the first time, they saw not weakness but will, not fragility, but fire. The girl's tears fell, because she knew those words were not for the crowd, they were for her. He was not here to own her. He was here to free her. And in that moment, the challenge was no longer just a contest. It was a war of spirit, a battle between cruelty and hope, and the galaxy itself waited for the outcome. The champion's roar shook the arena once more. His body glistened with rage, his claws dripping with the dust and stone he had torn apart. The crowd screamed for blood, their voices loud and endless. But among all that noise, one figure stood still, the human. His chest rose and fell with calm breaths, his eyes sharp like blades. He had already been cut, already bled, but still, he stood, and that simple act shook the champion more than any wound. The alien stomped forward, each step cracking the floor. "You dare mock me," he shouted. "You dare survive this long." His voice carried fury, but also something new, something dangerous, fear. The human tilted his head, not answering. His silence cut deeper than any words. The crowd noticed. It too, whispering in nervous tones. The champion grows angry, the human grows calmer. This is not how it should be. The girl's eyes never left the human. She could see it now, the change, the shift. At first, the fight had belonged to the champion. But slowly, piece by piece, the human had taken control. Not with strength, but with patience, not with power, but with mind. And now the champion was falling into his trap. The champion roared and charged again. His claws slashed through the air, breaking walls and leaving trails of sparks. The human dodged, rolled, and stepped aside with grace. Every time he moved, the champion grew wilder. Every strike that missed only fed his anger. And anger was dangerous. Anger made even the strongest blind. At last, the champion caught him with a heavy strike to the shoulder. The human staggered, pain flashing across his face. The crowd cheered with savage joy. They thought the end had come. But the human's fall was not complete. He twisted with the force, letting the blow slide him across the floor instead of breaking him. He used the pain, he used the momentum, and when he stopped, his feet were firm again, his stance unbroken. The champion bared his teeth, furious that even his best strike had not ended it. "You are nothing," he shouted. "You are weak, fragile, meaningless." The human's voice finally answered, steady and clear, "Yet I still stand." The words hit harder than any strike. The crowd gasped, the girl's heart raced, the champion's roar faltered for the first time. Now the fight was different. The human began to move, not only to survive, but to control. He used fallen stones to block the champion's path. He forced him into corners with clever steps. Every movement pushed the alien where he wanted him to be. The crowd could see it, their laughter fading into unease. The girl could feel it, her fear shifting into hope. The champion swung wildly, smashing pillars and breaking the ground. But every strike cost him strength. His body slowed, his breath grew heavy. The human, though bleeding and bruised, stayed sharp. His mind never wavered. His eyes stayed locked on the prize, her freedom. The turning point came with a single mistake. The champion lunged too quickly, blinded by rage. The human stepped aside, guiding him forward, and the alien crashed into a wall of stone with full force. The impact shook the entire arena, cracks spreading across the pillars. The champion stumbled. Dazed for the first time, the crowd fell silent, their belief shattered in one instant. The girl's hands trembled. her eyes filled with tears she could not stop. The human had done the impossible. He had made the champion fall. It was not over yet. But the power had shifted. The galaxy could feel it, the arena could feel it, and the champion himself could feel it most of all. He rose again, slower than before, blood running down his armored skin. His pride screamed louder than his wounds. "I will kill you," he growled. But his voice no longer carried certainty. The human wiped blood from his face. He said nothing, only raised his fists. His silence was a challenge louder than words. The crowd began to murmur with fear instead of joy. "What if the human wins?" they whispered. "What does it mean, if he does?" No one knew. No one had ever seen this before. A human, a creature they had called weak, standing against a champion and turning the tide. The girl's heart pounded. She knew her life was chained to this fight. But something more had awakened inside her. It was not only about her freedom anymore, it was about proof. Proof that kindness, will, and courage could defeat cruelty. Proof that humanity was more than fragile bodies. Proof that hearts could be stronger than claws. The champion roared again, forcing himself forward. But the roar sounded hollow now. It was the cry of pride, not victory. The human stepped toward him, unflinching, and the arena grew silent because everyone felt it. The fight had turned. The champion was no longer the hunter. The human was. The girl whispered softly to herself. "He can win. He will win." And in her whisper was not only hope, but belief. For the first time, belief in humanity. The arena was silent for the first time since the fight began. Thousands of alien eyes fixed on the two figures standing in the broken circle of stone. The champion's body heaved with heavy breaths. His armored skin cracked, his claws trembling. From exhaustion, the human, smaller and bloodied, stood tall, his eyes calm, his chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. It was clear now. The storm of the champion was fading, and the human's quiet fire was only growing. The announcer, with three mouths, tried to stir the crowd again. "Strength decides the victor. Courage is only a shadow," he cried. But even his voice sounded weak against the sight before them. The crowd could see what he did not want to say. The human was winning. The champion roared, forcing himself forward. He swung his claws in one last display of power, but his movements were slower now, heavy with rage and fatigue. The human watched, waiting. At the very last moment, he stepped aside, guiding the alien's strike into empty air. The champion stumbled, his balance broken, and the human struck back, not with brute force, but with precision. A blow to the side of the knee, a strike to the ribs, a push against the weak point of armor. The alien staggered again, shocked. For the first time in his life, he realized that raw strength was not enough. The girl gasped, her eyes wide. She had never seen anyone touch the champion like that. She had never seen him falter, never seen him afraid. But the human's clever hands and steady mind were breaking the beast that once seemed invincible. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "He can do it." The crowd erupted, half in rage, half in awe. Some screamed, "Impossible, it cannot be." Others shouted, "Look, the human is still standing." And deep in their voices was something new, respect. The champion tried to recover. He slammed his fists into the ground, sending cracks through the arena floor. He roared louder than ever, shaking dust from the ceiling. But the human did not flinch. He moved forward instead of back, step by step. He closed the distance. His wounds bled, his body ached, yet his spirit burned brighter. The girl felt her own heart burn with it, as if his fire had reached her. The champion swung again, desperate. The human ducked low, rolled beneath the massive arm. He grabbed a loose stone and struck it against the weak point of the champion's leg. The alien howled in pain, stumbling forward. The arena shook with his fall as his knee slammed into the ground. The crowd gasped in shock. The champion, the undefeated beast of many worlds, was on his knees. The human did not stop. He circled like a hunter now. Every strike he made was small but sharp. Every move was careful and sure. He was not trying to overpower. He was cutting away the champion's pride piece by piece. and the more he struck, the more the alien's strength crumbled. The girl's tears streamed down her cheeks. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. This human, fragile and small, had done what no warrior had ever done. He had brought the champion low, not through hate, but through resolve, not with chains, but with courage. At last, the champion roared one final time. With all his strength, he lunged, claws outstretched. The human waited until the very last breath of a second. Then he moved. A twist, a sidestep. And with perfect timing, he guided the alien into his own downfall. The champion's weight carried him forward into the broken stone wall. It shattered under his force, and the beast crashed into the rubble with thunder. The dust cleared. The champion lay still, groaning, his body broken. The announcer's 3 mouths fell silent. The crowd could not speak. They could not believe what they had seen. The human, covered in blood and sweat, stood tall, unshaken. He had won. The girl covered her mouth, her whole body trembling. Her heart raced with disbelief and joy. Her eyes locked on the human. And in that moment she knew her fate had changed. He had not only fought for victory, he had fought for her. And he had given her something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The crowd finally roared again, but not with laughter. This time their voices carried awe and fear. The human defeated the champion, they shouted. The words echoed like fire across the arena. And in that fire was the spark of something greater, the beginning of a legend. The announcer struggled to speak. By the rules of the bet, he said slowly, the human has won, the girl is his prize. The crowd waited, curious. Would he take her like property? Would he claim her as the others had planned? But the human only turned to the girl. His eyes soft despite his wounds, and he spoke with quiet strength. You are not a prize. You are free. The arena froze. Even the air seemed to stop. The aliens could not understand. No one had ever refused a prize. No one had ever broken tradition. But the human had, and with those words he broke more than the champion. He broke the very idea that strength meant ownership, that cruelty meant power. The girl's tears flowed freely now. She stepped toward him, her voice trembling. You saw me, not as a thing, but as a person, she whispered. And for the first time she smiled with real hope, her heart no longer chained. The crowd whispered in disbelief. This human is dangerous, not because of strength, but because of spirit. And deep inside, they all knew it was true. The human had won the fight, but more than that, he had changed the game forever. The arena was still shaking with the echoes of the fight. The dust had not yet settled, and the broken stones still smoked from the champion's fall. But every alien eye in the vast hall was fixed on the human. He stood tall despite the wounds on his body, blood staining his arm, dirt on his face. Yet in that moment he looked stronger than any warrior, because he had done the impossible. He had won. The announcer's 3 mouths struggled to find words. Never before had such an outcome been seen. The champion, who had crushed dozens of fighters from across the stars, lay defeated in rubble. And the victor was not a beast, not a monster, not a giant. It was a fragile human. The bet is clear, the announcer said slowly, his voice trembling. The prize belongs to the human. The girl froze, her heart caught between fear and hope. She had always known what it meant to be the prize, to be given away like a trophy, to be owned. Her whole life had been a chain disguised as beauty. She had been displayed, traded, bet upon, never asked what she wanted. And now, according to the rules, she belonged to him, the human. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see what he would do. Would he claim her like the rest? Would he treat her like property? Or would he show weakness and refuse what he had fought for? Every whisper, every eye, pressed down on the human. This was the moment that would decide his true nature. The human turned to her, his gaze steady, his voice quiet but strong. You are not a prize, he said. You are a person, free to choose your own path. The words struck the arena harder. than any fist. The crowd gasped, their voices rising in confusion and disbelief. "He refuses," some shouted. "He breaks the rules," others roared. But deep inside, they knew the truth. Something had shifted. The girl's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever looked at her and seen more than an object. Her knees trembled as she stepped forward, her voice weak but certain. "You fought for me," she whispered, "but you give me freedom." The human only nodded, silent once more, because his actions spoke louder than words. The champion, broken but still alive, growled from the rubble. "This is weakness," he spat, his voice ragged. "Ownership is strength, mercy is failure." But his words fell flat. The human's victory had already silenced the meaning of cruelty, and the girl's trembling smile carried more power than all the champion's roars. The announcer tried to regain control. "The bet was clear," he repeated, "the girl is his." But the human interrupted with a simple reply, "She belongs to herself." The hall erupted in chaos. Some shouted in rage, others in awe. Never before had the rules been broken. Never before had someone chosen honor over reward. The girl looked at the human with wonder. She realized then that he had not only freed her, he had freed himself from the chains of cruelty, and by doing so, he had broken the very foundation of the game. This was not just victory, this was defiance. The crowd began to argue among themselves. "He has insulted our traditions," one alien shouted. "No," another replied. "He has shown something greater than tradition. He has shown humanity," a quiet voice whispered. And that whisper spread like fire, because they all felt it, even if they would not admit it. The human had revealed something the galaxy had long forgotten. That strength was not only in muscle, that victory was not only in power, that true greatness came from compassion. The girl stepped closer to him, her chains falling to the ground. Though she was free, she did not walk away. She stood by his side, her voice soft but steady. "I choose to stay," she said. Her words echoed louder than the announcer's cries. She stayed not because she was owned. She stayed because she wanted to. And that choice changed everything. The crowd grew, restless. For if a prize could choose, then perhaps others could too. If ownership could be broken once, perhaps it could be broken forever. And that thought frightened those in power. But it also lit a spark in those who were powerless, a dangerous, hopeful spark. The champion tried to rise again, but his body was broken, his spirit crushed. He glared at the human with hatred. "This is not the end," he growled. The human looked at him calmly. "No," he said, "this is the beginning." The crowd fell silent once more. Because in those words was a truth they could not escape. The girl reached for the human's hand, her voice trembling with emotion. "You gave me back my life," she said, "and I will not waste it." The human nodded, his expression unreadable, but inside his heart burned with quiet pride. Because he had done more than win a fight, he had changed a soul. The announcer finally lowered his arms, unable to control the chaos. The rules were broken, the order shattered, and all because of a single human who chose compassion over ownership. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the day a champion fell, but as the day a human showed the universe the meaning of freedom. The arena remained heavy with silence. The broken stones and cracked floor told the story of a battle that should never have been won. The champion lay defeated, groaning in shame, his pride shattered, and beside the rubble the human stood tall, his body battered but his spirit unshaken. The girl stood with him, free yet choosing to remain by his side. It was a sight that no one in the galaxy had expected. And yet, no one could look away. The announcer with 3 mouths opened to speak, but the words died on his tongues. What could be said when tradition itself had been broken? What could be declared when the meaning of the bet had been turned upside down? The crowd waited, restless, uncertain. They had come for entertainment, for cruelty, for the triumph of strength. Instead, they had been forced to see something else, something deeper, something powerful. They had been forced to see humanity. The human glanced around the hall, his eyes meeting the countless faces staring down at him. He saw hate, he saw fear, he saw disbelief. But among those faces he also saw something new. Respect. For the first time, aliens who had mocked humans as weak now looked at him with awe. For the first time, they wondered if humanity's true power was not in muscle, but in spirit. The champion roared from the rubble, his voice broken but still proud. "You think this is victory?" he spat. "You have embarrassed me, but you have not won the galaxy. One fight does not change the universe." The human stepped closer, his voice steady as stone. "Change always begins with one fight," he said. "And one choice, the EI." Girl looked at him with trembling eyes. She knew he spoke not only for himself, but for her. He had chosen to see her as a person, not a prize, and that choice had shaken the galaxy more than the fall of the champion. Her voice broke the silence. As she spoke to the crowd, "He gave me freedom when he could have claimed ownership. He showed me respect when all of you saw me as a thing. He fought not for power, but for humanity." Her words carried across the arena, and the whispers in the crowd grew louder. He freed her. Some muttered. He refused the prize. Others said, "No one has ever done that before." And in their whispers was the birth of something dangerous to the old order. The birth of belief. The announcer tried to end it. "The bet is complete," he cried, "but the rules are broken. This cannot stand." But even as he spoke, his voice trembled, because deep inside, even he felt it. The rules had already been broken forever. The human turned back to the girl, his face calm despite the blood and pain. "You are free," he repeated. "You owe me nothing, but you may walk your own path now." The girl's tears flowed freely. She shook her head softly, her voice filled with emotion. "No, I choose to walk beside you, not because I must, but because I want to." And her words hit the crowd harder than any blow from the champion. For choice was the most dangerous thing. Of all, choice meant freedom. Choice meant the end of chains, and now a being once treated as a prize had chosen for herself, because a human had shown her that she could. The champion roared weakly, trying to rise, but the human only looked down at him with quiet strength. "This was never about winning you," he said. "This was about showing them." He turned to the crowd, his voice carrying through the hall. "Strength without compassion is nothing. Power without respect is weakness. Humanity is more than flesh. It is choice. It is hope. It is spirit." The hall shook, not from roars of anger now, but from silence. A silence so deep it carried weight heavier than stone. The aliens could not argue, could not laugh, could not deny. Because they had seen it with their own eyes. The human had proven that weakness was an illusion, and that spirit could overcome even the strongest chains. The girl reached for his hand, her voice soft but certain. "You changed me, and now I will help change them." The human looked at her, his eyes tired but warm, and he nodded once, because he knew this was not the end, it was the beginning. The crowd began to murmur again, but their voices were no longer the same. Some still shouted in rage, clinging to the old ways, but others whispered with awe, with fear, with hope. "What if more humans are like him?" they asked. "What if this is only the first?" And that question spread like fire through the galaxy, a fire that could never again be contained. The human stood in the broken arena, the girl at his side, free and smiling for the first time in her life. The champion defeated, the rules shattered, the old order shaken, and in that moment a new story began. Not just for one human, not just for one girl, but for every world watching. The story of humanity, the story of spirit, the story of a choice that changed the stars.